Hi there, welcome to my channel. Do you want to find out what happened on this day centuries ago? Then keep watching. My name is Sotonye Afiesimama, and this is Today in History. Let's find out what happened on this day, the 29th of June. We start with the year 512, and we had a solar eclipse which was recorded by a monastic chronicler in Ireland. So that's probably what he looked like. Obviously, someone who lives in a monastery, prays for a huge chunk of the day. So that's a monastic chronicler who recorded a solar eclipse on this day. Apparently, we had one exactly 8 days ago, and this happened in northeastern Africa, all the way to southern Pakistan, northern India. So most of Asia had a solar eclipse 8 days ago. Right, let's move on to the year 1613. Shakespeare's Globe Theatre burns on this day, and it burns during the performance of Henry VIII. 1755, on this day, 515 prominent Filipinos were baptized as Roman Catholics. Why prominent Filipinos? My assumption would be that because they had influence, they had power, they were able to convince millions of Filipinos to convert to Catholicism. And this was also possibly let's see, what word now, the right word to use now, colonialism tact or strategy to get people to act in a certain way, I guess, to be docile. Maybe docile is not the right word, but close enough, just for people to follow what the Catholic Church was preaching, and also the Spanish conquerors, the Spanish colonialists. This was a way for them to ease themselves and take control of Filipino society. Anyway, so let's move on to the year 1767. The British pass Townshend Revenue Act, levying taxes on America, helping to intensify opposition to British rule. So basically, they shot themselves in the foot there. And 9 years later, the United States declared her independence from the United Kingdom. Let's move on to the year 1786. Alexander Macdonell and over 500 Roman Catholic Highlanders leave Scotland to settle in Glengarry County, Ontario. So that happened on this day in 1786. That's a plaque to commemorate his birth and death. But in between, obviously he moved with 500 people. That's a lot of people moving to settle in Canada. That's what Bishop Alexander Macdonell looked like. Okay, so let's move on to the year 1850. British ex-Prime Minister Sir Robert Peel, pictured here, fell off his horse on this day and died 3 days later. So that's a British ex-Prime Minister. Obviously, he wasn't Prime Minister at the time of the incident, hence the word ex. We move on to the year 1926. A man called Carter Woodson wins a Springarn Medal for his research into Black history. So that's him here, Carter Woodson, on this day in 1926. Let's move on to the year 1864. We're going back in time now. My bad. Oh yeah, let's talk about this man. Samuel Crowther, his full name, was a Nigerian bishop and the first Black bishop of the Church of England, otherwise called the Anglican Church, in Nigeria. He was born in 1809 and died in 1891 on the last day of the year. He was also a Yoruba linguist and the first African Anglican bishop in Nigeria. He was born in Osogun in what is now Oyo State. He and his family were captured by Fulani slave raiders when he was about 12 years old. Now, before I continue, I'm just going to talk about the Fulani, their impact in Nigerian politics. We're having issues now with Fulani herdsmen raiding people's farms in the south, using people's land for grazing their cattle, and this has caused a lot of conflict. So this Fulani incursion is not new in Nigerian history. So even Samuel Crowther, who was descended from a king, was captured, was kidnapped by these Fulanis and sold into slavery. He ended up traveling to Europe and then ends up in Freetown before coming back to Nigeria. So they also have ruled Nigeria for quite a while as well, the Fulani, people of Fulani extraction, who arguably some might say we're not originally Nigerians. They've come in from North Africa into Nigeria with their cattle. The current president of Nigeria is of Fulani extraction as well. So anyway, just saying that this history seems to be repeating itself and that a solution needs to be found to reduce or eliminate the conflicts altogether. Something needs to be put in place. We know that Nigeria is for all of us, all those who are Nigerians who live within the geographical territory called Nigeria and who have Nigerian citizenship, including the Fulani. But people should not take their cattle to graze on other people's lands without permission. Okay, there are laws in place. You cannot just go and grab somebody else's land and use it for your own. That's against the law. So a bit more about Samuel Crowther. He was a direct descendant, I mentioned this earlier, of King Abiodun. Ajayi, as he is also known, was 12 years old when he and his family were captured, along with his entire village, by Fulani slave raiders in 1821 and sold to Portuguese slave traders. Crowther, or Samuel Crowther, was freed from slavery at a coastal port by the Royal Navy's West Africa Squadron, which was enforcing a ban against the Atlantic slave trade. The liberated peoples were resettled in Sierra Leone. In Sierra Leone, Ajayi adopted an English name of Samuel Crowther and began his education in English. He adopted Christianity and also identified with Sierra Leone's then ascendant Creole ethnic group. He studied languages and was ordained as a minister in England, where he later received a doctoral degree from Oxford University. So that's an interesting story, and obviously that's a book that was written about him by Jesse Page. Go check it out. Find out more about Nigeria's first Black Anglican bishop. Samuel Crowther. We move on to the year 1900. The Imperial Chinese Court issues what is essentially a declaration of war against the foreigners in China and blames hostilities on them, giving license to Boxers for even greater ferocity. On this day in 1914, there was an assassination attempt by this lady who has part of her nose now possibly shot off by a bullet. Her name was Kionia Guseva. She attempts to assassinate Grigory Rasputin at his hometown in Siberia. Now, Rasputin was a famous Russian who was connected to royalty. He was supposed to help one of the royal people in Russia at the time with their son's health issue with blood. I don't remember the details, but you can Google it up. So he became famous because his work or his medication or his whatever he was doing to help this Russian royal family's son was working, Anyway, so that's the lady who, Kionia Guseva, who attempted to assassinate Grigory Rasputin at his home on this day, 1914. On this day, 1925, this building, Canada House, opens in London, England. This is actually in Trafalgar Square, London. Next, in 1926, exactly a year later, 10 years later, 1936, we find George M. Cohan as the first artist to be presented with a U.S. Congressional Gold Medal by Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was a president, for raising war morale. 1949, South Africa. See what happens in South Africa in 1949. It was the implementation of apartheid on this day. So there were no mixed marriages. So unions like this, relationships like this would have been banned. And you can see this happened in America, but see the thinking of the time, the atmosphere of the time, the spirit of that age, race mixing not allowed. So a couple here, another couple with beautiful children, beautiful couple, beautiful children. This looks like Prime Minister of a Southern African country who became famous or infamous for marrying a white lady. Parents on both sides didn't agree to their marriage, but eventually it worked out, and his son, I think, became Prime Minister. After his death. Didn't succeed him directly, but I think succeeded him after, but his successor. Let's see. Yeah. So another one there. Beautiful couple again. So nothing wrong with interracial marriage. Next we have, the year is 1986. And Richard Branson, which is Bishop Rock, aboard his Challenger. Not sure why that picture is there. Just cocking up today, I'm not sure why. But yeah, Richard Branson aboard Virgin Atlantic Challenger to reach his Bishop Rock, Isles of Scilly, the fastest crossing of the Atlantic. On this day in 1992, forgive me if I get the slide wrong, I didn't this time. So 1992 on this day, Algerian head of state Mohamed Boudiaf is assassinated by military officers during a public speech at the opening of a cultural center in Annaba. We move on to the year 2000. Eminem's mother goes to court claiming defamation of character in a $10 million civil suit. After taking exception to the line, "My mother smokes more dope than I do," from a song single, "My Name Is," you get the drift. So, 2008, Thomas Beatty, pictured here, the world's first pregnant man, gives birth to a daughter on this day. How time flies. So he was actually transgender. So there we go. That's a pregnancy in its early stages. And he gave birth on this day. I wonder how the child is doing now. Last but not least, good old Bernie Madoff was jailed on this day. 2009, was sentenced to 150 years in prison. So obviously he's going to die in prison. Bernie Madoff, jailed on this day in 2009. On that note, folks, we end today in history for the 29th of June. Pardon the slight errors earlier in the slides. I hope that you would like this video in spite of the errors, and that you would subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell as well so that you are notified of my future uploads. Thanks again, guys. Not the best video that I've thrown out there today, but I appreciate your support. Thank you. Stay safe, guys. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.